What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. So we are going to watch this absolutely incredible interview between this Australian journalist and the failure Kamala Harris. They're going to sit there and discuss about her book and some of the stuff that she said in her book. But this interview was very, very interesting to me because this woman is going to ask very direct questions that most journalists fail to ask. American journalists fail to ask to Kamala Harris and all of these Democrats. So when I say, I mean, this journalist is incredible. She did her job exactly how she was supposed to, in my opinion. But let's not waste any time. Get straight into this video. But before we do, guys, hit the like button down below. It really helps the channel out. Let's get into it.
Kamala Harris, welcome to 7:30.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
I want to go back to election night eve.
Yes.
You'd gone into that day feeling optimistic, but then you get a call from your campaign manager. I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't think you're going to get there. How did you feel in that moment?
I was in a complete state of shock. And so much so that the only words I could speak over and over again were, my God, my God, my God. I knew what it was going to mean for my country. I knew what it was going to mean for my country.
And what about you in that moment too?
You know, I have not felt an emotion similar to how that felt, except for maybe a heavier degree, but similar to when my mother died. I felt a level of grief for my country. I knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen. And that's how I felt. It was very painful. It wasn't, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was an altogether other thing that was about what will happen.
You say it's not about losing, but losing is awful.
Losing what is what I would propose. One can lose something, and that can be frustrating. This was about my country and the people. I knew he meant what he said about weaponizing the Department of Justice against his political enemies. I knew what he meant.
What? What? Isn't that what y'all tried to do to Donald Trump so you could win or Biden could win the elections? Matter of fact, the only reason that you were propped up as the candidate for president is because all of the weaponization that y'all did to go after Donald Trump, it didn't work. All of it failed. All of it failed, except maybe one, right? That Stormy Daniels case or something like that. Yeah. So that was the only and sole reason that you're up here. Because if that had worked, if Donald Trump was convicted and was sentenced to jail, then there wouldn't be a need for you, right? Because they still would have just used Joe Biden, because they probably wouldn't have had the debate. And if they did have a debate, it would have been it would have went a lot different, right? It would have been a lot different. It would have been, I mean, I don't know. If Donald Trump went to jail, I don't know where this country would have been. If Donald Trump went to jail, or if they were successful in his assassination attempt, yeah, I don't know where this country would be. It's funny that she says this, and she doesn't realize that the only reason that she's up there is because their weaponization of the Justice Department failed.
Meant around what it would be in terms of how he felt about January 6th and whether he believed in even the efficacy of that election and what he would do around releasing the January 6ers. I knew what he would do around treating these agencies as though they were an extension of his corporation for his personal benefit. I knew what he would do about interactions with foreign heads of state that would be about flattery and favor. I knew that these things would happen. I knew he would give tax cuts immediately to the richest people, and meanwhile has no sense of appreciation for the policies we've created around affordable health care for working people.
Then how consequential was it for America, for American democracy, that President Biden made the decision to run for a second term?
I think that there was an impact. I write in the book in many different ways. We needed more time. And had we more time, perhaps the outcome would have been different. And that is a fact. I think it's an undeniable fact.
You say in the book
That's crazy.
that it was...
That's crazy. Because you had all the time. You had 4 years. You and Joe Biden had 4 years to deliver on what you said you were going to do for the American people. That's plenty of time. And the results of the actions that you took during that administration would be enough. If y'all were a great administration, they wouldn't need to campaign. There wouldn't be no need for a campaign if you're the incumbent. Hey, look what we've done. Just look at the success, right? That's really what Donald Trump did this time around, essentially, because he was saying, hey, look how great it was when I was president, and compared to what it's like with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Compare the last 2 sets of 4 years and see, which life was better for you. Right? So you had plenty of time. Talking about she didn't have time at all. No, you had more time than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump spent most of his time fighting case after case after case after y'all weaponized the Justice Department. So you had 4 years plus the time to campaign while Donald Trump was distracted by what y'all were throwing at him. This woman is crazy.
Reckless for you not to intervene on that decision to run again, given the stakes. How could you leave the decision to Joe Biden and Joe Biden?
As I write, and this book really is about it's candid. I offer a lot of candor around what I did and what I believe I could have done and should have done differently, and what was at play overall. And so as I write, I reflect on not talking him out of running and why I didn't. And I ask myself, was it grace or was it recklessness on my part? And I think it was reckless.
You were one of the people in the room.
And there were many, obviously, who were
Of course, we understand
but,
that.
And I say, but I go on to say that part of the reason I didn't.
She just said that. That's crazy.
Is I don't believe in having a conversation for the sake of getting something off my chest.
Sure.
It's about making it productive.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed that were I to raise it with the president, it would have appeared to be so completely self-serving that it would have been counterproductive.
And yet you now call it reckless.
I think that in retrospect, it was a conversation I should have raised, even if it were ill-received.
Wow. So she just admitted, it sounds like she just admitted that she knew something was wrong with Joe Biden. And the reason that she didn't say anything is because the perspective that people would have had would have probably been that she did it to prop herself up, right? That's crazy. That's crazy because you still have a duty. You still have responsibility. So just because it felt like you would have looked bad, because it looks like, even if it's not true, that you said these things about Joe Biden because you're trying to take his place. That is crazy because they sat there and lied. So she just admitted and said that she knew something was wrong. So you're admitting to lying to save face. That's what it is, to save face so you don't look bad to other people. You decided to just lie. Wow. That's incredible.
Didn't you also have a responsibility? You were one of the people in the room. You saw, notwithstanding that you said that he was able to execute his job, but you knew he was asking for 4 more years. Didn't you have a responsibility as an American to step up and say something at that point?
I did not question Joe Biden's capacity to be president at all.
For 4 more years?
I did not question his capacity. I saw him in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room, meeting with world leaders on a daily basis. And I did not have any question about that. My concern...
Even up to...
Then why was it reckless for you not to say something? This is very contradicting.
28.
Correct. My concern... Well, I mean, I can speak for up until 2024.
But I guess what I'm asking is, you saw how he was. You saw some of the deficits notwithstanding.
My concern was whether he had... running for president of the United States in a nation of 330 million people is an extraordinary feat about energy and endurance, and especially talking about running against the person who's now in the White House, and doing it with the heavy responsibility of being the sitting president. And that was my concern about whether, I talk about running for president. Some people say, oh, it's a marathon. No, I would call it a marathon running at a sprinter's pace with tomatoes, I'm in England, tomatoes being thrown at you every step you take.
But wasn't Joe Biden, then, to put it on him, wasn't his refusal to recognize his own frailties the reason that you faced a nearly impossible task?
I ran against Donald Trump for president, and Donald Trump ran on a platform that was, in large part, I believe, misrepresenting his intentions to the American people. I do believe that there are a fair number of people that voted for Donald Trump who believed him when he told them that his first priority on day one is going to be to bring down prices, and he didn't. And you combine that misrepresentation of intention with also what was at play in terms of massive amounts of mis and disinformation.
Now, forgive me.
And a truncated calendar in terms of the clock.
I want to interrupt you because that is a world-class pivot, but it is not the question that I asked you, which is about Joe Biden's failure to recognize his own frailties and what that did to you. The question is about Joe Biden. Are you still reluctant to criticize the former president?
In what regard, please?
Well, just in terms of that question. So you went on...
What exactly would you like to ask? Be more specific, if you don't mind.
Was it Joe Biden's decision, his failure to recognize his own frailties in that position, that put you in the position that made it almost impossible to win that race?
He was not frail as president of the United States.
But he had frailties. We all saw the debate.
Damn.
I do believe that Joe Biden had the capacity to be president of the United States, and I have never doubted that he had the capacity to be president of the United States. If you want to talk about whether he had the ability to endure what a race for president of the United States would require in that political environment in 2024, as I've said in the book, I had concerns.
I'm just wondering, is there a reason why you won't go to that prolonged frailty question? Now, we saw the debate, we saw the difficulty he had marshalling his thoughts.
I have answered that question. I do not believe that
I think it's just hard watching the debate to see how there could not be a problem long term with someone who can't marshal their thoughts. I'm not saying his acuity wasn't present.
I talked about that in the book. And I also mentioned the context in which that debate occurred. And you'll probably remember how I talked about that in terms of what his travel schedule had been, that what he had been enduring in terms of the timing of that debate. I talk about it extensively in the book. I'm not shying away from that. That's why I wrote it in the book, because I do know it's a question people had.
I want to go to another question about him. You described this. I think it's one of the standout scenes in the book. You're preparing for one of the most difficult tasks a politician in the world can do, which is prepare for a US presidential debate against Donald Trump, perhaps the most difficult contender. Joe Biden called you. What happened?
He called to, I thought, congratulate me or to wish me good luck. And then he brought up other issues, which I have discussed in the book.
Which is, he was talking about some criticism that he'd heard from some donors in Philadelphia.
Correct. That's right.
Now, what did you think about that?
As I write in the book, it threw me off for a moment. But I obviously, if you
More-
watch the debate, you will see that it did not
Sure.
have any impact on my performance, which many people, if not most, would and did declare that I won that debate.
I'm curious because you are undercutting the language of your own book. You say in the book,
Wow.
Doug Emhoff, your partner, your husband, could see how angry and disappointed you were.
Yes, of course.
So let me ask
He
you.
did see that.
Yeah.
He did.
But just now, you didn't quite put it in those terms. Someone rings you at that crucial moment and talks about something else and then goes on to talk about his own debates against Trump. What was your reaction to him giving you that call?
I was upset about it, as I write about in the book. Yes.
I just sense a slight reluctance to go there, to put those words. It's one thing
On
writing them
television.
in the book. Are you unwilling or reluctant to have your criticisms of Joe Biden, as frank as they are in the book, on tape, on camera?
Oh my God.
Of course not. I wouldn't have written a book if I didn't want to be on record about that.
So,
That's a curious question.
well, no, I just thought I could detect a difference between what the strength of the language, the clarity, you saying hurt and disappointed.
Well, here's the thing.
Here
I
you
wrote
are
a
now.
book that the book is not about Joe Biden. So
Sure.
a lot of your questions have been about Joe Biden,
Yeah.
and I would really like to talk about the book in full. I'm happy to
We will.
directly answer any
Of
question
course.
you ask.
Yeah.
But the book is not about Joe Biden.
No, clearly a crucial issue. We all, not only, as you say, is it crucial because it left you with 107 days instead of a full-blown campaign period, but of course the whole world watched that presidency, saw what happened. It, of course, with
And
the
the
United
whole
States, it
world
matters.
watched Donald Trump, and watched Donald Trump as he campaigned, and certainly as he has now conducted himself in the White House.
Oh my
And
God.
there's so much about the book. And the reason I wrote it, to one, give a certain sense of closure about what happened in those 107 days. Another reason I wrote the book is that history will write about those 107 days as a part of American history. And I was intent on making sure my voice was present in the way that an unprecedented election, where you had a sitting president running for re-election 3.5 months before the election, decided not to run. The sitting vice president took up the mantle against a former president of the United States who had been running for 10 years with 107 days to go.
Does it make you angry that former President Biden still says he would have won?
I am focused on the present.
Well, let me ask you about that because
yeah.
you referred to the state of America now. We can see it. America.
Yo, this interviewer is gold, man. She is, oh my gosh, she's going ham. This is great. This is what we've been waiting for, man. Why can't American journalists do the same thing? Woo! She is sweating right now, boy. Oh my God, this is crazy.
Is undergoing what looks like, from the outside at least, an authoritarian revolution. So, to come back to the book, what does it offer in a practical sense at the moment, in this moment? What does it offer us?
Well, there are many things. First of all, I think it's important when the rest of the world looks at the 107 days and the outcome of that election, one, to be reminded, 1/3 of the electorate voted for the current president. 1/3 voted for me, and 1/3 did not vote. 2/3 of the American people did not vote for the person who's in the White House or that agenda. And it's very important when the rest of the world is trying to, and it is head scratching to some extent, what's going on in America, what's going on with the American people, to keep that in mind. It's important, as I write in the book, to keep in mind it was the closest presidential election in the 21st century in America. So if there is an assumption that the majority of the people of the country itself, putting aside the electorate, have, or as their priority, what you are seeing come out of the White House, I would suggest to you and to all our allies around the world that the American people still retain and deeply have a sense of our importance to the rest of the world, a commitment to our Constitution, the Constitution of the United States, and to the values and principles that we have projected, imperfect though we may be, but as those values and principles that we hold dear. And so in writing the book, it is also about reminding us of those moments when tens of thousands of people came out saying that they care about whether it be domestic issues like affordable childcare and paid family leave, or international issues like where we stand in terms of Ukraine and Russia.
Let me ask you a question about foreign affairs.
Yeah, so we're going to stop it right there. That was incredible. Now, the rest of the interview, I mean, is pointless. It's just a bunch of word salad. But this interviewer, I just want to give her flowers, because she did exactly what we've been waiting for a long time from American journalists who failed to do their jobs, because these were the types of questions that we've been waiting for these people to answer, right? And you notice how she tries to pivot away. Every time she brings up Joe Biden, she tries to pivot away into talking about Trump, right? And she sits there and says, oh, no, I'm here to talk about the book. I'm here to talk about the book. And when she asks her about things that are in the book that she said about Joe Biden, she doesn't want to be frank about it, right? She's very direct. She's very stern in the book in itself when she's quoted on what she wrote, but she doesn't want to use that same type of language or vocabulary out loud, because it's different when people can watch it on video and can hear it and can replay the clips, right, over and over again, right? You can't do that with a book. So she's going to leave her real feelings in the book, because she knows deep down inside nobody really gonna read this book except these journalists that are trying to get, you know, some insider information. But most Americans are not going to read this book. I guarantee you that. So they're not gonna really know her true feelings, and that's why she's running away from actually expressing them on television, because it's easier for people to consume it and for people to share it if it's on a video clip. But I mean, this is what Democrats are going to face, right? This Joe Biden issue is never going to go away, especially with the people that are currently in the Democratic leadership or the Democratic Party that were around under the Joe Biden administration that told us that he was perfectly fine. Everything was good. You know, the borders are closed and safe. The economy is great. There is no inflation, right? All of these people that lied about everything. This Joe Biden issue is not going to go away, because this right here is like the issue internally. I mean, it's at the core, right? Because you lied and gaslit us for so long about something that we all witnessed, about something that we all saw, right? They told us it was deep fakes, right-wing conspiracy theories, and we saw it and witnessed it for our own selves with our own eyes. So they're going to have to answer for their lies. It's not going to go away. The Joe Biden issue and the can men be women and women be men, right? That issue right there is the litmus test for any Democrat to see their insanity level. That's it. That is the greatest two qualifying questions that you can ask any Democrat to see if you can take them seriously. Because if they can't answer these two things directly and be honest about it, then any other issue you can't be trusted on. You can't. I can't take your word for it. You'll sit there and lie to me that men can be women and women can be men, and that Joe Biden was perfectly fine and he was going to be an effective president for the next 4 years, right? So if you can lie to me about those two things that are just, I mean, concrete facts, then I can't trust you about anything else. I can't. I won't take you seriously. So shout out to this journalist, man. This was incredible. This was entertaining, but also just enlightening. If she makes a run for it, because that's what she said. If you guys decide to watch the rest of the interview, that's what she said. You know, they were asking her about if you're going to run and blase. And she said she doesn't know yet. But if she runs, it is going to be another landslide for Republicans. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Let's talk about this video in the comment section. Let's talk about it down below. Leave your opinions down there. Of course, if you are brand new, consider hitting subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.